Hey everyone, and welcome to another discussion on the Rational National. I'm joined now by comics creator Matt Strackbein, also known as the Letterhack. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, David. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no problem. I've, of course, have known of your work for quite some time, but you have a very unique Kickstarter that you're launching called Milagro. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, yes. Milagro is Spanish for miracle. It's a traditional luchador comic, but it's a contemporary fight comic. Um, I understand these terms may be lost on laymen, so I'm glad to elaborate at any time. Basically, it's a story of a wrestler, not a wrestling story per se. He kills someone in the ring right in the opening of the comic, goes into self-exile, living on the streets of Mexico City, and
So,
he finds a path to redemption, but it's not easy.
so we'll get into more of your Kickstarter later on in the discussion, but I wanted to bring that up first because there's a link below the video. You can support it. I'm supporting it, and you'll understand why. I mean, Matt Strackbein is a well-known figure within this leftist online space. Has been doing more political comics for quite some time, and is really, I mean, when you first did a so I'll share some of these images as we're talking about this. When you first put me into a comic, it was kind of like the first time I realized, hey, I kind of made it here. Like people are actually
Oh,
watching my content. They know who I am. There's even some fan art now. So tell me about more about your political art and how you like what influences you and how you've kind of found this entire space.
well, the ever since I was a little kid, I would make comics about friends of mine, and it was always easy for me to use like inside jokes where people would get it immediately because they're in the comic. And it's kind of hard to do outside your group of friends, right?
Hmm.
So by the time I started watching a lot of YouTube shows and podcasts about politics, I realized there's an audience here watching these people too, along with me. So if I spoof these guys or make a comic about them using something they said on the show or a common inside joke related to the show or the host of the show, then that audience will get it the same way my friends used to get it when I was younger. And so, I was on Twitter for a while and I didn't really have any purpose. I was just contributing to the vitriol and railing against things I didn't like, and that did not suit me at all. And
Hmm.
so I got out. And I only got back on when I decided to start doing these comics. Because on the one hand, I still wanted to make comics, but now I wanted people to read more comics. And also, I wanted to direct people to shows like yours. And so, I think it works. I've even had cases where a host would learn about another host just through my comics.
Yeah, I mean, you've definitely covered or you've done comics of a lot of people on the left. So talk more about sort of I guess what inspires your art, going from political content to now doing this comic. Discuss that transition and what it's like going from sort of this very I guess online space and moving into sort of a very different sort of project with a a completely different basis for what you're doing.
Yeah, it seems like sharp contrast, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like on the one hand, I'm drawing pictures of Sam Cedar all day, and then transition over to a brutal, violent comic story. So uh, here's the idea. One, no, I love entertainment and pop culture as much as the next guy, and I always gravitate to things that are better suited in a movie or a comic book than real life. Violence being one of those. It's kind of funny how like you see this stuff in real life and it's jarring. I can't even like, watch an MMA fight all the way through without being, put off by it. But when it's in a comic book, that's fine. I
Hmm.
mean, we know it's not real. You can exaggerate things and have fun with it. But there are similarities between all of my work. There's a through line. Um, First of all, when it comes to Milagro, I brought on collaborators. They're being compensated, but I wouldn't say I hired them because it's a true collaboration.
Hmm.
I just say hired accidentally all the time. But so I have a writer, Guillermo Zagara, and he's known for extensive research. He's a big wrestling nerd. He loves the fight aspect of it because he gets down to the nitty gritty and the choreography. And I brought on an artist to help me with the art chores named Ross Radke. He's doing all the interior pencils and inks. Now, it is a fight comic, but it takes place in Mexico, and I think as of right now, there's exactly one American citizen, like a white guy, traditional white guy in the comic, and I actually like fought against that to a degree. Uh, but in the end, it made sense to have him. But when I originally came up with the concept in 2004, it was important to me to, if I was going to create my own original comic, it would have to be something that wasn't currently available. And immediately I knew that I would have to increase diversity. If you ask the average person on the street to name a comic book character, it's going to be Superman the white guy, Batman the white guy,
Mm.
Spider-Man the white guy, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
So I wanted to create something that wasn't that. And I also, as time went on and my politics shifted kind of drastically to the left and I became a progressive, I knew I wanted to work with people who would bring those values into the story. And so they're there. The narration over top of the images is going to be familiar to people in terms of, like a gang could very much be like a corporation coming into your
Hmm.
neighborhood, taking over, ruining everything. A gang could be exactly like the fracking industry. And so we use a lot of phrasing and terminology in an original way that'll be familiar to people, but juxtaposed with the images just makes for a more well-rounded comic book story.
So that's really cool. So you bring your political influences into the comic then.
Right, exactly. Yeah. They say write what you know, but we're doing that and then some because we're also storytelling in terms of what we believe in. And it's not enough to just make a comic where people get beat up. There has to be a purpose to it.
Hmm.
And so although we say the comic is rated BV for brutal violence, it's actually a story with a lot of heart, and it's about community and defending your community and standing up for yourself and joining forces. And this is stuff we see in the news every day now in
Hmm.
terms of protest or activism. And so, we didn't want to miss an opportunity to promote that sort of that message.
And I think that's a very effective way of educating people is to it's one thing for me to put out videos discussing the latest news and what's happening, but it's another thing to actually have these sorts of political messages through different cultural mediums, comic books being one of them. And I think the art especially that I've seen is just incredible, just absolutely beautiful. The art you have in this comic. Discuss more about the actual project in terms of uh, the sorts of perks that backers are getting, like what you actually get for backing the project. As I said, I'm a backer. I'm very excited to read the whole thing. But get into more of what the backers of this project receive if they back it.
Yeah, so um, it's funny when you make a Kickstarter, there's all these different groups of backers. There are people who are like, well, if it's comic book, I just want the comic book.
Yeah.
But you really do have to offer incentive. And the more people who back the campaign, the more there is for everyone in terms of stretch goals. And so we start out with a specific set of rewards. There are sticker sheets. Go figure. People who like comics also dig stickers, and there are art prints, and the art prints are actually by myself as well as an add-on reward we have. So you could choose any reward level, and then add on another reward where you'll get a full color digital portrait, just like the ones I do of people like you and the Humanist Report and everybody else. I get a lot of requests for those actually, and I
Hmm.
just don't have the time to do them because of this project. So I wrapped it in to try and, two birds with one stone. And so we reached our original goal, thanks to you and all our other supporters, by the end of the fourth day,
That's
which was a
amazing.
big deal.
That's
Yeah, it was.
amazing.
My expectations have been exceeded on every level from the very start of this project. And we've gone past our first stretch goal and we're on to our second one now, which I hope we could do. There are 7 days left as of today, and it's looking good. And so what you do is you explain to people, if we make over our goal, don't worry, we're not all going to take a vacation or buy a new car. The money goes into the project, and here's how. And so I've been updating backers on how we're going to improve the book, the actual product, but also the additional incentives. So there's a second sticker sheet that everyone gets now. There's 2 new prints that we're going to introduce if we get to 11,000, which is the second stretch goal. And yeah, it's been really great because actually a lot of people have been taking advantage of the add-on, the digital portraits. So I have my work cut out for me. Uh,
Yeah.
there was there was one day where I think I did 50 in a day,
Wow.
and and like in an 8-hour day, I did 50 of them.
So what's your process when you're creating a digital portrait? Like, how can you possibly manage to do 50 in a day? Like, like what is the actual work involved into doing each of those?
Well, it gets easier the more you have because you could do it like in a conveyor belt style, right?
Mm.
Where I always use reference. I always use like a photo reference that I can look at. Um, and then I plot it out, spacing wise, even though I may put them online one at a time, I have them all in one file. So I can sit there and draw them
Mm.
one by one and keep referring back in terms of scale. But I always start out with the black and white art and then I color it. And honestly, the more I do it, the easier it gets. It's like muscle memory.
Hmm. Well, that's incredible. And the Kickstarter, again, I will link to it below the video. Is there anything, any last words you want to say in terms of the Kickstarter or anything else?
No, well, I can't say thanks enough. It's been The support has been overwhelming. The support from the independent left-wing media has been just more than I could have asked for. Certain people are retweeting it without me even asking them to.
Well, I
Big
mean,
names.
you've done. It's because you've been so. You're well known in this space. I mean, we all know you. Your work is fantastic. No one else does what you do in terms of covering the sorts of left wing shows and putting comics out there. So you really are a unique figure in this space, and I think you stand out because of that. And that's why we're supporting your project. We believe in you. So definitely, if you like Matt's work and check out his Kickstarter, you will see how beautiful this art is, how amazing this project sounds. Support him, back him. The last day, I believe, is August 3rd
Yeah, well, at midnight.
at
So
midnight.
by the 4th. Yeah,
So
so
by the
get
4th.
on it. Yeah.
All right.
Sunday night.
All right, guys, make sure you go and back his project. Matt, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.